Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce the 61st Superintendent of the United States Military Academy, Lieutenant General Steve Gilland.
Lauren, thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Fisher, members of the Fisher family, Secretary McDonald, General Pace, General Cody, Mr. Buca, distinguished guests, teammates, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, and thank you all for being here to celebrate this year's recipient of the Sylvanus Thayer Award. As I've thought about this evening, I'm reminded of the late educator, Dr. Menor Miners Jr., who served for many years as the president of Illinois Wesleyan University. Each year at commencement, he would conclude his remarks and charge the new graduates with these words: "Go into the world and do well, but more importantly, go into the world and do good." This year's Thayer Award recipient is one of those rare individuals who has truly done both. As a business leader, one can look at Ken Fisher's life and career and say, he has done well. But much more importantly, one can see beyond a shadow of a doubt that he has done great good in our world. His philanthropic work over the years has run the gamut from STEM education to supporting New York City's first responders. But most notable is his support to our nation's service members, veterans, wounded warriors, and their families. He is, of course, most famously known for his leadership of the Fisher House Foundation, an international network of more than 90 comfort homes provided at no cost, a home away from home for families while service members and veterans undergo medical treatment. Some here this evening probably know of someone who has stayed at a Fisher House or has personally benefited from this service themselves. Betsy and I can personally attest to this, as we know several families who have stayed in Fisher houses over the years across our military, saving military families millions of dollars in out-of-pocket expenses for travel and lodging. Additionally, Ken and the Fisher House, in partnership with the Department of Defense, established a program to provide hotel lodging and air travel for families where a Fisher House is not available. But the impact of the Fisher House goes beyond dollars and cents. It's a tremendous comfort and priceless peace of mind for these families, knowing they can be with their loved ones while they recover in our military and Veterans Administration hospitals. Beyond the Fisher House organization, Mr. Fisher has led numerous other charitable endeavors supporting our nation's veterans, including chairing the 2016 Invictus Games, bringing wounded warriors together from all over the world to compete on the fields of friendly strife. Ken also serves as the co-chairman of the Intrepid Museum Foundation, which not only promotes education and awareness of American military history and innovation, but also supports our veterans and their families through a network of philanthropic foundations and even provides STEM education programs to New York City public school students. Additionally, he served on various national security and policy boards, too numerous to mention, and has been honored with the Department of Defense and the Department of the Army's highest civilian awards, among his long list of well-deserved recognitions. And tonight, we're privileged to add the Sylvanus Thayer Award to that list of accolades. In developing our Army and nation's future leaders, an important part of our mission at the United States Military Academy is to inspire. By that, we seek to not only inspire our young men and women to dedicated service and to live honorably, lead honorably, and demonstrate excellence, but also to use their education and talent to make a difference in the lives of others, to paraphrase Dr. Myers, to do good. As we've come together this evening to recognize this year's Thayer Award recipient, I can think of no finer example to inspire these future leaders to do good and make a difference than Ken Fisher. Sir, we're proud and honored to recognize you this evening as a leader of character and an exemplar of the West Point's ideals of duty, honor, and country. On behalf of the entire West Point team and the Corps of Cadets, thank you, sir, for your lifetime of selfless service to the millions of men and women who have worn the cloth of our nation and their families, and for showing and inspiring us to do good. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce the chairman of the Board of Directors for the West Point Association of Graduates, the Honorable Robert McDonald, class of 1975.
General and Mrs. Gilland, Mr. and Mrs. Fisher, other distinguished guests, and members of the Corps of Cadets, good evening. General Gilland, on behalf of the West Point Association of Graduates, I thank you, the staff, and the faculty of the United States Military Academy and the Corps of Cadets for hosting this presentation of the Sylvanus Thayer Award. To the Corps of Cadets, congratulations and thank you for the splendid review this evening. Your consistent excellence makes us all extremely proud. Today marks the 65th annual presentation of the highest honor West Point and the Association of Graduates can bestow on an American citizen. The concept for the Thayer Award was developed by the West Point class of 1931 as they planned their 25th reunion. The Academy and the Association of Graduates agreed that such an award would contribute to improving the public's understanding of West Point and the principles on which it is built. From its inception, the purpose of the Thayer Award has been to recognize an American citizen of outstanding character and accomplishments, whose stature in the civilian community draws wholesome comparison to the qualities for which West Point strives. Ken Fisher exemplifies this ideal, and as my friend, I was thrilled to learn he was nominated for this award. Because as a business leader and a philanthropist, Ken has worked tirelessly for decades to support military families whose service member has been injured while serving or having served their country. I saw this firsthand as a secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs. Fisher houses support more than 28,000 military families each year, and more than 1,000 military family members stay at a Fisher house on every evening. That adds up to more than 8 million nights of lodging, serving military families and veterans' families, saving them more than $400 million in out-of-pocket expenses. Having Ken Fisher's name on the Thayer Award plaque and displaying his portrait in the Thayer Award room will forever associate him with West Point and demonstrates to the public that the ideals upon which it is built, duty, honor, country. As you all know, the list of previous Thayer awardees is truly impressive. Their names are engraved on a plaque at the entrance to Washington Hall, and they include scientists, esteemed members of the clergy, members of Congress, cabinet members, other recipients including Supreme Court justices, ambassadors, renowned journalists, 2 astronauts, and many, many more. There are also the names of 4 former presidents, and among the attributes shared by all is a steadfast commitment to the advancement of our country, and Ken Fisher will officially join this group tonight. Ken, my friend, I can say without hesitation that your name on West Point's Thayer Award plaque greatly enhances the prestige of this award. The West Point Association of Graduates is honored to recognize your life of service to America. It is my pleasure to represent the Long Gray Line in presenting the 2022 Sylvanus Thayer Award to Mr. Ken Fisher, as his devotion to those who have made immense sacrifices in service to the nation is a quality that all Americans should admire and exemplifies duty, honor, country. Ken and General Gilland, please join me in front of the dais.
Distinguished guests, I must confess that I struggled for months to find the right words that describe my feelings tonight, because I never considered myself worthy of an award such as this. It remains difficult to imagine that my name will be added to a list that includes former presidents, generals, cabinet secretaries, diplomats, astronauts, all giants from different walks of life who devoted their lives to serving this nation. As I stood in that majestic Thayer room and I gazed at the portraits of past honorees, I realized just how honored I will be to walk in the shadow of those giants. My most sincere gratitude to the West Point Association of Graduates, my friend Bob McDonald. My thanks to General Gilland for his incredible hospitality and for the amazing experience of reviewing such an impressive Corps of Cadets. And thank you to the Corps for allowing me the opportunity to be among you. It's this nation's great blessing that so many of our nation's future leaders, those being prepared to accept the mantle of military leadership, are trained here at this storied academy. And there is no mistaking that Sylvanus Thayer's mission lives on through your fortitude and your strength of character. I have so many family members here tonight. It is amazing. And my mother, my stepfather, my brothers Stephen and Karen, my sister Karen, Stephen's wife Danina, my daughters Crystal and Rose are here. My granddaughters Rose and Gianna are here. My son Josh and his girlfriend Meg. My only regret is that my father couldn't be here to share this night with me. But I can go no further without acknowledging my wife, Tammy, who has been by my side through this amazing journey. One in which, over 20 years, we've taken a handful of Fisher houses and built a network totaling nearly 100 facilities across the country and spanning 2 continents. In 2 weeks, we'll celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary. She is my strength. She's mother to 3 amazing adults. She's grandmother to 2 beautiful girls. And yep, the leader of my Fisher house. Your being here makes tonight that much more special for me. Thank you. Wherever I go around this great nation, I'm quick to point out that I didn't wear the uniform of the United States Army or any branch of service. Because of that fact, I've got no anecdotes from my own Beast Week or vignettes about military life or my experience being deployed in a forward area. My exposure to the military began watching news reports on the Vietnam War as a 12-year-old boy. And what I remember quite clearly was my reaction to clips depicting how our troops were treated when they came home. There was no fanfare, no ticker tape parades, no thank you for your service for answering their country's call. Instead, our returning heroes were greeted by disdain for policies they didn't make, their service and sacrifice mistaken for collusion with a government under siege. But in the years that followed, I watched this group of veterans turn the bitterness of that experience into a pledge that no future generation of veterans would ever come home to that kind of treatment again. And so tonight, I stand with all Vietnam veterans wherever they may be. By now, you almost surely know what Fisher House is and what we do. In the 30-plus years since our founding, more than 430,000 guest families have passed through our doors and have saved over $525 million in lodging and travel expenses. But those are figures and statistics. They're really just numbers. They don't get to the heart of what we do. Because our mission isn't simply to relieve families from their financial burden in their time of need. It's to strengthen the bridge that needs to connect American civilians with those who live more exclusively in the military and veterans community. Because the chasm between these communities has, in my view, grown too wide. I'd like to take a few moments highlighting why we all need to do more to strengthen those connections. The story that explains why this became such an obsession for me began on a Friday night back in February 2007 when I received a call from a woman claiming to be from the White House. Thinking this some happy hour prank, I immediately hung up the phone. But when the phone rang not 2 minutes later and I looked down at the caller ID, yep, I quickly realized that I had hung up on your commander-in-chief. In the conversation that followed, I was asked to join a panel chartered to examine the military and healthcare system through the eyes of the wounded themselves. And that honor started me on a journey that continues to this day. And just to give you a sense of the landscape at the time, it had recently come to the Department of Defense's attention that living conditions for our wounded, who had been discharged from Walter Reed but needed follow-up care or med board review, had deteriorated drastically. Military medicine had improved to the point that 95% of those wounded on the battlefield were now surviving their wounds that would have been fatal in past conflicts. But our ability to move our soldiers through the system seamlessly was not sufficiently robust, in part because the number of unseen wounds were also rising. Newspapers and magazines soon picked up the story, and anger turned to outrage. After a series of congressional hearings, President Bush formed a presidential commission of 9 men and women that was charged with sorting out the issues that led to too many servicemen and women languishing in this sort of interminable limbo. And so the 9 of us, led by Senator Bob Dole and Secretary Donna Shalala, traveled the country visiting hospitals, interviewing the wounded, and holding field hearings. And what we uncovered was, simply put, an overly administrative system that was suffocating under the weight of its own bureaucracy. In the years since, both the Department of Defense and the Veterans Administration have made vast improvements to the quality of care our wounded, injured, and ill now receive, thanks in part to the incredible work of our doctors, our nurses, and all our military healthcare professionals that we at Fisher House are so proud to partner with. But what I learned on that journey of discovery stuck with me, especially after meeting Sarah and Ted Wade while giving their testimony at a hearing at Walter Reed, testimony that illustrated vividly just how wide the civilian-military divide had grown. Sergeant Wade, who served as a member of the 82nd Airborne, had endured catastrophic wounds, including severe traumatic brain injury, when his Humvee hit an improvised explosive device in Iraq. After receiving care in theater, he was medevaced to Landstuhl, Germany, where his wife Sarah soon joined him. Now, Sarah, like so many other spouses and family members, had become Ted's primary health care advocate due to his head wounds and his inability to advocate for himself. Miraculously, his condition began to improve, and he was transferred stateside to Walter Reed for further treatment. But after months of intense rehabilitation, the couple finally returned home to North Carolina. But when Sarah returned to work, there was no celebration of service to her country, only a pink slip. Sarah had been terminated for, and I quote, having too much on her plate. Now, that moment highlighted 3 realities that speak powerfully to the fraught relationship that exists today between the civilian and the military communities. First, too many Americans fail to understand that it's not just officers and enlisted members of the military who serve, but their families serve as well. Parents, spouses, siblings, and children make sacrifices and bear burdens the average American will never understand. If their service member or veteran needs hospitalization due to wounds, injury, or illness, the burdens and stress only grow. More often than not, these families have to travel across the country to a place they're not familiar with 2 things in common: a loved one who's sick or injured, and no affordable place to stay. Second, for those of us who didn't serve, it may always be appropriate to thank a military family for their service, but that alone is not good enough. If that sentiment isn't backed up with genuine gratitude, if the civilian community isn't honoring these sacrifices, then we are falling short as a nation. Third, our failure to appreciate the role that families play supporting their loved ones reflect a degree to which the bonds that tie this country together have frayed. Ultimately, we need to do a much better job building and maintaining the bridge which traverse the widening chasm that separate those who give so much to this nation from those who enjoy the freedom that comes from that service. That, in my opinion, is why Fisher House is so important. It's not just that we provide free lodging for families that are caring for sick or injured members of the military. It's that we represent the promise of how America's civilian community can make good on the debt of gratitude we owe those who defend their freedom, a debt that could never fully be repaid. Fisher House's motto is "A family's love is the best medicine of all," and aiding these families is a crucial part of what those of us who haven't served owe to those who do, along with a promise that we will never forget their family members that paid the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our freedom. The bridge we are working to strengthen has been part of my family's commitment to America for decades now. When my Uncle Zachary, the son of an immigrant stonemason from Russia, founded this organization back in 1990, He was bent on reducing some of the stress that families face when caring for their loved ones, while at the same time giving back to a nation that had been so good to him. When Zach fell ill in 1998, he asked me and Tammy to represent him at the opening ceremony of the 24th Fisher House, Lackland Air Force Base, outside of San Antonio. And while I never asked him why he sent me in particular, I can't help but think he knew what he was doing. And as I reflect on that day, I realized that he wasn't just entrusting me with a legacy. He was instilling in me a self-awareness that I could serve this nation in a different kind of a way by continuing to build and strengthen that bridge. And that's exactly what Tammy and I have tried to do in the years since. That's why being here tonight is such an honor for me, because I get to see the other side of that service. But while I'm proud of what Fisher House has done in creating facilities that help civilians support our military, I know that beyond our specific mission, our nation has a long way to go in ensuring everyone in our country shares in that calling. The depth of connection between these two communities has, of course, ebbed and flowed throughout the years. When this country was so divided over the Vietnam War, support for our troops was at an all-time low. After we were brutally attacked on 9/11, this nation united behind our military in a way not seen since World War II. The plight of the military family was becoming part of our national dialogue, and thank you for your service could now be heard in airports, train stations, bus depots, anywhere we saw a man or a woman wearing the uniform. But while we once again embraced our military as we did 2 generations earlier, today we are once again a nation divided, politically, socially, economically, in just about every way imaginable. Extremism dominates the political landscape, and our public discourse has eroded. And as a result, the focus on the divide that remains between the civilian and military families has been marginalized, if not forgotten completely. History must not be allowed to repeat itself as it relates to our military. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come for us once again to take stock of what makes this country so great. Why is it that without fail our military is the first on the scene when a hurricane or an earthquake or other natural disaster devastates a developing nation? Why are we the ones who give out medicine and aid victims of global pandemics? Why are we the ones who send food and clothing to those in need? Why are we the ones who answer the call when liberty and justice are threatened? We come together in service to others because we have long been strengthened by our differences. Yes, America is a wild mix of people from different races, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different outlooks. And for most of our history, even among terrible injustice, we've celebrated that diversity. It has girded us against every challenge, both foreign and domestic, and we've emerged as a beacon of hope and strength. Today, we need to ensure that that same strength is reborn. And that process begins by reinvesting in the bond that needs to exist between our nation's public and private communities. That mission is bigger than just taking care of those who have served, as Fisher House does. It's wound up in creating new technology that will serve us on the battlefield and in the private sector, in harnessing new green technology that powers our homes and industry and keeps us safe from climate change, in building the infrastructure that will serve both a strong national defense and a healthy, growing economy, and in building affordable housing for our civilians while improving the quality of life for our military families. Fisher House shows in one realm of the American experience how these communities are stronger together. The question is, in other realms, whether we can fruitfully lean on each other to do more than either can do alone. In my life, I've come across few who understood that mutual obligation or embodied that spirit of collaborative leadership more than one particular former Thayer Award recipient, Bob Dole, America's last true statesman, Senator Dole acted as a mentor to me, beginning when I served under his chairmanship on the Dole-Shalala Commission. But even in the years that followed, we kept in touch, and I strive to this day to emulate his example of service and his commitment to the military and veteran families. Senator Dole's life and his sacrifice were reminders that freedom is a gift from God. It must be cherished and, yes, at times defended by you who will bear the burdens of leadership and those who will serve under you. Those who answer the call to arms in times of peace or war must transcend the divisions that run rife through our society. It was Abraham Lincoln that told us that a divided house cannot stand. And despite our military, these deep divisions will keep us from playing the role that, quite frankly, this nation needs to play around the world, and will keep us from tackling the important problems that plague us domestically. We need to remember that we are all Americans first and foremost, and politics can never be allowed to influence that reality. I may be a civilian, but duty, honor, and country is how I've tried to live my life as well. And as I look at you, who will take your place in that incredible long gray line, I marvel that you all feel that way at such an early stage of your lives. It takes such a great deal of courage and conviction to make sacrifices on behalf of our freedom while your peers are enjoying those freedoms that we all take for granted. That is exactly why being among you is so special for me. In closing, I would offer the following thoughts for your future. The United States Army, indeed the entire military, has become a symbol of stability in a world too often pivoting between extremes. Your fellow Americans rely on you, not just as war fighters or global first responders, but as our current and future leaders. Yeah, you, the Corps, are the symbols of a stable America. In your hands are the reins to guide the future of this country, in conflict, in diplomacy, in the communities where you live, and in the hearts and minds of your fellow citizens. This is the core of your mission, and as I look out at you tonight, I know we are in safe hands. Thank you once again for this incredible honor that I will cherish for the rest of my life. May God bless you and your families. May God bless the Corps. And may God bless these United States of America, and beat Navy.
Mr. Fisher, thank you for your service to our nation. Please accept this cadet bust as a gift from the Corps of Cadets as a token of our appreciation for your inspiring remarks this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the singing of the Alma Mater, led by the Cadet Glee Club. Please remain standing for the benediction by Chaplain Good.
Please join me as I pray. Almighty God, tonight we are inspired by the one who has given so much to educate, to provide hospitality, to care after the hospital, to show a compassion that desires to pay a debt that he does not owe and yet has taken on himself. Lord, he didn't just do good, he's done good. Lord, bless tonight Ken Fisher, who stands seemingly unworthy of an award, and yet, because of the light he casts, his shadow is greater, because it gives us a call to move forward. And above all, Lord, we are thankful for his love of country. We are thankful for his love of family, because that love has led him to love ours. Lord, may we now go out in that example and do good too. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the Thayer Award presentation this evening. Guests and members of the Corps, please stand and remain standing at your tables until the official party departs. Thank you for attending this evening. Court dismissed.